would take great personal pleasure in raping my 14-year-old sister. And he made it clear to me that he knew where she went to school, and that he could easily pull outside the school and drag her into the car. And he said I would know who done it, but I could never prove it. They went on then to threaten to shoot my parents. They said that basically all they had to do was someone called to the house some night, and as in their own words was to fill them full of lead. And they said the next day in the papers it'll be the UVF or LVF or whoever have claimed responsibility for the killing of two Catholics in the Craigan area of Derry. And to me at 16 years old, there was nothing to tell me that this wouldn't happen. That sort of broke me then, and I said, look, I'll sign the statement myself. So I went up and signed the statement, and immediately after I felt almost a sense of relief. I can only tell my story. If people want to believe me, they can believe me. Believe me, I never was involved, and I think anyone knows me, and over the last 20 years I've conducted myself as well as I can, and
if you turn the camera off, please.
Later, Jerry was taken to Derry Courthouse and charged with murder. He was then taken, along with one of the other boys, Jerry Kelly, to Crumlin Road Prison in Belfast.
We're taken out of the van here and escorted up the steps here by 2 RUC officers, one each. This is where it all began. Sort of a fear of the unknown. You're not knowing where you're going, what's ahead, like, or... This is it. A-wing, B-wing and C-wing. Doot, doot, doot. We were actually taken downstairs into a holding cell. As you can see, it's very bleak. A lot of noise. Yeah, there was I remember the noise, a lot of noise, a lot of doors slamming and gates slamming and keys and screaming and shouting and roaring, and we were like frightened little schoolboys. When we were initially brought on the wing the first day, I noticed these 6 or 7 guys coming along the centre of the wing, and the screw sort of pushed it back into the wall, and something was shouted. So I happened to say, I said, who are they, them fellas? And he says, that's the Shankill Butchers. And I said, my Jesus Christ, I said, what's this, where the hell are we? And it turns out the Shankill Butchers were a gang, a loyalist gang, who at the time were not only killed their victims, but literally cut them up with hatchets and machetes and whatever it might have taken. And I think then you hit home so hard that, my God, that's the Shankill Butchers. And there they are, not 5 feet away from in the same prison. These fellas it was like having 7 Hannibal Lecters right in front of you. No, again, you have to laugh at it if you don't. And then you go down to see your parents, maybe the next day they come up to visit you, and they're saying, well, how are things? Oh, it's grand. Fuck. This is our cell 6. It's light work, I presume. Box. Very good. As you can see, it's very small. 2 beds, side by side. We used to pace up and down the floor. 1, 2, 3, 6, 6.5 to the door. Up and down, and he drove me mad. I still do to this day. I pace up and down.
I used to wake up every morning and focus and hope it was a bad dream and it was still there, the mark on the ceiling.
We had some great laughs in here. We used to pretend, dress up, physically. The whole works as if we were going out in a nightclub in Derry. And we'd be sort of saying, where will we go tonight, Kels? And he'll say, I don't know, we'd go to Oscar's, which was the club where we might go to the El Greco. And we were there last week or something, it was banana stuff. And we would pretend that we were in a nightclub in Derry. And I would say to him, will you go over and chat up that one? And he would say, all right, I'll be back in a minute. So he would pretend that he'd gone over to chat a girl up for me. And I'd say, well, how did I get on? You're off. You have to see her later on. We had great laughs here. But I think that's what kept us sane. This is the exercise yard now where we used to come maybe every second day. We were allowed out for an hour's exercise. When I was in here, I'd just come back from Leicester, and most of the fellas would have known this, and who's a footballer fella? Most of the time I spent playing here, they were all just trying to keep the legs off me, like it's a bit of fun. But
we didn't have a football.
They used to play football here with socks, and there was sort of sponge from the bed. The mattresses inside the cells were wrapped in the socks, because apparently what we were told was a few years previous to this, they were allowed a leather ball, and someone kicked the ball over the wall from maybe not this yard, but one of the yards, and another ball came back, and there was a gun inside it. So needless to say, they stopped that, and so they had to use socks from then on. Didn't we? Yeah, should we come up this way, didn't we?
No, we didn't. This was always exciting coming down here.
Each week, the Derry Four, as they became known, were escorted to the courthouse for a remand hearing.
Is that it?
I'm not sure. Lord Gulliver's Grilly.
I'm locking the door, Kels. I'll see you later. We'll see you in 20 years' time. I can remember coming across the tunnel here if you were going for your bail application, or you were going to see if you were going to be remanded in custody for another week, or what we normally were hoping for was that
they dropped the charges.
Or one of these journeys would end with us the charges being dropped.
This is where all your hopes were dashed every week. Every day we came over here, we'd hope this is the last time we're going to get out. Now these are all holding cells where you would have waited for to go up in the courtroom.
Oh yeah, this is it. Oh my God.
Many a person has come up here. It's where we sit.
Yeah, I was sitting there. You were sitting there.
The public were there, our barristers.
Our barristers were down there. The prosecution were over there.
The judge. And the scales of justice. Justice Myers.
On April the 26th, 1979, 7 weeks after their arrest, Jerry and the other boys were granted bail at £2,000 each.
Once you mentioned the sum of money, I knew this was it, we were getting out.
And then I could hear all the hustle and bustle then behind me. People, obviously.
But when we were being held in the cells down below, even the UDA and UVF prisoners, when we were telling them, they were laughing at the thought of us even attempting to get bail on the charges, the murder charge.
Jerry moved back to the Cregan estate where he grew up. Bail conditions meant that he had to report to the Strand Road police station at 8 o'clock every morning and be home to his parents' house by 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, this is where my house is down there, and this is where we played all our football. And from the minute we came in from school, we would spend until it got dark. We would play football up here for hours and hours on end, and there could be upwards of 30 of us playing here. And if it was a case of your mother coming out to call you in for your supper, you go down, have your supper, and come out with half your supper still in your hand, or a piece of bread, and just continue the match and play until you couldn't see each other anymore. There was a British Army camp just up there. It was called Piggery Ridge, And the row of houses here was obviously the last line of defence, as it were. We'd be often here, and next thing you'd hear the clatter of gunfire, and they'd be firing at the British Army camp, like, and we would just basically just throw ourselves on the ground and wait till the gun battle was over. But like that, you didn't take much notice of it. You know, you could get up and dust yourself off and play in the match. What was the score? Let's so we play on now. Is it over? And that was it. You just played away. Weird. Mr. Hassan.
Jerry, how are you?
Willie, how are you? Nice to see you again. Nice to see you again.
Willie Hassan was Jerry's solicitor throughout the trial.
All sorts.
The biggest obstacle for the defence was that Jerry had signed a confession.
Well, a lot of people signed. I mean, at the end of the day, what you have to realise is somebody's taken in there, you have two policemen, they're shouting at you, they're roaring at you, and at the end of the day, they just wear you down. In one of the cases I was sitting in, the police actually came around the desk, again with somebody like Jerry, who'd never been arrested before, and kept trying to pressurise him. I then asked the custody sergeant to ask them to go back to the other side of the desk, and they wouldn't go. They just laughed at me and said there doesn't even have to be a desk here. So when he went out, I made my client go onto the desk and said sit there and interview him. So the whole row started, and eventually they went back. But I mean, you take that's even with a solicitor there trying to look after his client. Can you imagine what it is with a young guy there on his own with nobody to turn to? His only point of reference are the two interviewing officers who are obviously doing their best to get a statement from him, one way or the other. The only evidence was their signed statements. There was no other evidence against them. Nothing. Nothing. Just their signed statements. They had two signed statements. You had one of them admitting to the shooting and one of them admitting to a kneecapping. Now the interesting thing about it is that we were able to prove through, I think it was Jim O'Hay, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Jim O'Hay with Leicester City, that when you had signed for kneecapping that man in Chantallo, you were actually playing football on the football pitch. I don't know whereabouts, whether it was in Leicester or whereabouts, but for Leicester City reserves or juniors or whatever they were, you were actually playing on the field and could not possibly have done the kneecapping. We couldn't do that for the murder, but we could do that for the kneecapping.
Jerry spent the next 18 months on bail. During that time, he gathered witness statements and evidence in order to prove his innocence. If found guilty when it came to trial, he faced life imprisonment.
I honestly thought that no court in the world could overlook the fact that I had 53 alibis. As my father always said to me, he said, "Son, had you not been at home that night, at the exact moment that soldier was shot," he said, "perhaps there could have been 1% of me that would have thought that I had been involved." He says, "But," he said, "son, no one can ever tell me that you were involved."
On the 13th of October 1980, in Belfast Crown Court, the trial began.
Unfortunately, the system at the time was what were known as dip block courts. In other words, there was no actual jury listening to the evidence. So it was solely on how the judge seen the case. I wanted him to say, "Let these men free, you put them through enough," but that wasn't to be the case.